Thank you, Lindsay. That was beautiful as normal. And welcome to the third Sunday. And you heard me last week, this first month is the month where we go back to the basics. It's one of my favorite times of the movement. Remember last week we talked about going back to the basics, what the founder of the Science of Mind philosophy, Ernest Holmes, called the thing itself. And that's the way he likes to refer to God, spirit, life, love, whatever you want to call that. And this week, you're going to hear a little bit more. I'm going to talk about the way it works. So we're going to take the next baby step from the thing itself to the way it works this week. And remember that what we studied last week was that this wonderful philosophy went back in so many different roots, so many different faith traditions and spiritual traditions. And it was amazing how they were saying the same thing. And what we learned was that everything emerges out of this divine life. And this divine life is not something that's out there or only certain people can have it, because this divine life, everything comes into the real from the invisible, and the divine life is what we live our life in. So it's all inclusive. So from the moment we're born into this experience, into the moment we pass from it, we're living a life as the divine life. And once again, it's invisible, but yet real for us. And so we are not all that God or Spirit is inclusively, but we're this wonderful, unique aspect of the divine, this beautiful aspect of it. And we're always a choice. So we can always put our hat on of the limited mentality. We can always put our hat on of the victim consciousness. We can always put our poor little me hat on. And we can live that life and live a more limited life because we're a choice. We're going to get into that a little bit more about how that choice manifests. But when we talk about our spiritual life, when you heard the term, when you're into your I amness, that is when all the choices are stripped away. All the viewing the world is the end-all, be-all. And where we're returning to that beautiful spiritual divine aspect of ourselves. That's what we talk about when we're talking about the I amness. It transcends the body and it transcends the mind. It actually is the life and love of God played out in you. And so we all have our bad days, and we say, oh my God, I'm not that good of a person. But let me tell you, the divine does not make mistakes. You are not a mistake or a happenstance. The divine imbued in you beautiful, unique qualities that make you very, very special. And so this life experience is rediscovering who you are, about bringing forth those unique gifts Spirit has planted within you to live the life of the divine, to bring it into others' experience. So I want to talk about the way it works, and I want to talk about three concepts of the way it works. The first one is this. Creation moves from invisible reality to visible form. So, and it really happens that corollary with that is that these ideas sort of gather together almost like seeds. And the seed seems to be inert. It's just an idea, whether it's an idea of an heirloom tomato plant, an idea of a beautiful oak tree, or an idea of a weed. It's inert until it's planted somewhere where it can come forth. And everything begins as an idea. In the divine mind or your individual mind, it all begins as an idea. And so what that's telling us is that the creative force in the universe absolutely is thought. Now, granted, there has to be the creative medium that turns that thought into form and things, but let's look at the Bible stories in a different way. In the Genesis story, in the story of Genesis, one of the creation stories in Genesis, it goes like this. It says, let there be heaven, let there be earth, let there be a universe. And you notice that story didn't go like, lo and behold, the heaven appeared and the earth appeared. because thought is the creative thing, and that's the first principle. It goes from the invisible into the visible. So now it needs a power to bring the thought or the idea into form. And that power is just what we call, Ernest Holmes called it the universal mind, we call it the universal law. And our best analogy for it is you have the seed, it gets planted in the creative medium or the soil, it produces the plant. And so, let there be, that's a great affirmation for you. And in the original Bible, it says, let there be, and at first there was the Word. The Word was pretty powerful, of course, because the Word is representing thought and it's creative. The ancient Greeks used the term logos. What a good, strong-sounding term. Meaning same thing, that empowering word from which everything is created. So there's a power to claim the idea and bring it into fruition. Because remember that everything starts first as an idea, and then it's created into form. So John, could I have my first slide, please? So the founder of the science of mind philosophy, Ernest Holmes, says we, and the parentheses is my understanding of this, we believe in the universal spirit, which my opinion is God, which operates through the universal mind, which is the law. We are surrounded by this creative mind, which receives the direct impress of a thought and acts upon it. So we have the seed going into the soil, going into the form or the reality. And so thoughts somehow congeal, I'll use the word congeal, into things. And if I had a microphone, I'd move around, I'd move to the front of that stage and tell you that's exactly like the quantum physics analogy, that the entire world that you're about to experience is out there in potential. And only when you decide what you want to look at, that potential coalesces, condenses into the world of your reality. So now we're getting into the second concept. Second concept, in Ernest Holmes' vernacular, there's a law of mind within all things. And this is one of these things, I'm going to use an omni word now, it's omnipresent, it's present everywhere. It never goes away, it's always there for us. It always takes ideas and moves them forward into reality or form. Whether the ideas are things, whether ideas are stuff, whether ideas are the universe. So it always moves them into form. And the same law works on our individual thoughts. And John, could I have my second slide? And so what this second concept does for us, it makes something available to us that all we have to do is change our thinking and our life will change. So this slide is Ernest Holmes' most quoted quote that I've ever heard. So if someone asks you what science of mind is really about, tell them this: there is a power for good in the universe, greater than you are, and you can use it. So what it's saying is there's this immutable law that's always there, that always takes our seeds and turns them into our harvest, however they are. If our seeds are, oh my God, I'm never going to get ahead, that's going to be our harvest. If our seeds are, use the creation story in your daily life. Wake up and say, let there be a beautiful day for Michael and everyone that he comes in contact with. Substitute your name in there. Let there be a beautiful day. And I now accept the joy and the divinity from which I am. Powerful, powerful stuff to be. And the Bible reaffirmed it. Because the thing about it is you have to believe what you're saying, what your thought is putting forward. Both you have to send the direction of your thoughts, And you also got to send the energy behind your feelings, because both of them are so important. Because if you're saying something and you really don't believe it, you're just saying it, it's not near as powerful as when you're full force of your emotions and your beliefs and your faith is behind it. And the Bible confirms that to us. It says, as you believe, so it shall be done unto you. It goes on to say, you shall decree a thing and it shall be established unto you. So once again, use this creation story to be your daily affirmation. He said, let there be, and fill in the lines. Let there be, and let your full divinity out. What is it that the divine in you wants to create for yourself today? And we practice affirmative prayer, and the Master Teacher Jesus told us, when you pray, believe that you have received, and you shall receive. When you pray, believe that you have received, and you shall receive. Because we must believe our prayers. We can't just say a prayer that someone told us to say and say it nonchalantly and think, well, if it happens, that's good. If it doesn't. Because chances are it's not going to have the same effect if we put the full force of our thought, our consciousness, and our beliefs and our energy of our emotions behind it, right? And the Buddha went along with that. The Buddha said, all that we are thoughts, and our thoughts make our world. So he's just reaffirming that the thought is the creative aspect of the entire universe, whether it be individual thoughts. We think in groupthink a lot. We have groupthink for nations. Stillbeat Center for Spiritual Living certainly has a groupthink. We have a groupthink for any classes we have. So it's the collection of those thoughts are creating the world which we're living in. And so the second key, once again, is there's this law of mind, or this universal law, this creative medium. The first key is creation moves from invisible reality to physical form, and that sets us up perfectly for the third key, and it's this. It shows us how to become the living embodiment of our dreams by transforming our consciousness. Because if we continue to seek to enhance believing and accepting our prospects and our dreams about our world, our consciousness is changing. And as our consciousness evolves, that power, that universal mind, that creative medium, just reflects that power back to us and creates our lives around us. And what our consciousness is our deep believing. It is said it's what you've agreed to over time. Now, Ernest Holmes said that you don't get what you want, you become who you are. So as you evolve over time, you put stuff into your consciousness. And sometimes you put very limiting stuff into it. I know when I was being raised, I was said, you'll never have enough money. You'll always have to keep saving for retirement. You'll never quite get there. And as you evolve that out of your consciousness, this power of the mind, or the creative medium, reflects that back to you. So if we change our thinking, we change our consciousness. And the universal law absolutely immediately just grows this experience for us. It just grows this experience for us. And it's not changing where we live, the people, the places, the conditions, because remember what's creative and what's primary is thinking and believing and putting the energy behind those thoughts and beliefs. So we need to learn to think correctly. And remember, the direction of our thought and the energy of our feelings is what's going to make that more and more powerful for us. The Bible tells us, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. And Ernest Holmes tells us, if I could have my third slide, John. I'm missing that. sorry. I got it now. John's got it on the screen about now. To learn how to think is to learn how to live. A person by thinking can bring into their experience whatsoever they desire if they can think correctly and become a living embodiment of their thoughts. So this brings us to a great point. So the third key was it can show us how to become the living embodiment of our dreams and our consciousness. And it also tells us that we can start taking responsibility and stop blaming someone else for the things that are happening in our life. And once again, the direction of your thoughts and the energy behind your feelings is molding your consciousness. And when the consciousness gets molded, automatically, something else happens. The power of the universal law reflects that back to you. Your world is better, it's more empowering, and it's sort of a cycle that feeds upon itself. So the better things are, the more you're saying this stuff really works, and the more you working on your consciousness, both the direction of your thoughts and the energy behind your feelings about your thoughts. And so let me just give you maybe a different way for us to, from what we've heard today, to look at our affirmations. So at the beginning of the year, we always do intention setting, and I know several of you were on a Zoom meeting with me and we set our intentions. The good thing about intentions, they come more from the divine than our normal affirmations do. So if we take those beautiful divine-inspired intentions and use them as a basis for our affirmations, then we put the words behind them. Then we put the feeling behind them. And then we put them forward. We don't put them forward until we truly, truly believe what we're saying, because that's what we said. We have to continue to believe what we say. And when that happens, it starts with intention. It gets coalesced and formed into affirmation. And then the power of the universe, of the divine, just changes it into our reality. So maybe take a step back and think about, before you just write an affirmation, relate it back to your intention and put the feeling behind it and the words behind it that are the exact words you're getting from this aspect of the divine that you really are. And so with this, I told you last week I'm reading the Science of Mind 365. And what a great book that is. So that book was originally written, they've updated the language a lot in it, but when we first came out with our movement, and I want you to think back, because our movement, when Ernest Holmes was first getting started, it was the late 1920s, and they created the first Science of Mind magazine, which a lot of us read today, in 1927. So these are like daily meditations. And think back also on how, remember Ernest Holmes was born in Maine and came over to California, to Los Angeles, Wilshire Boulevard, Redondo Beach, all the places we know where they are, to start this wonderful movement. And it was a powerful place for him to be. And just think how beautiful it was there. There was not much traffic to put any pollution in the air. And this just must have been a thriving place. All these philosophies were up and coming. I shared with you last week on, all the things that Ernest had studied and all the plaques and awards he was getting on his wall and all the opportunities for him to speak. So it was an expansive time. So I picked out two of these. And if you're yearning for more Bible studies, go read the Science of Mind 365, because Ernest puts lots of them in here. And John, if I could have slide 4 up. The first one is from the book of Job. And for those of you who remember the book of Job, it's this quandary, isn't it? It's this righteous man who was living a righteous life, following all the rules, and everything started going bad for him. And his friends, just like we used to do in the movement 15 or 20 years ago, said, oh, it must be your thinking, it must be your actions, you don't deserve good, and that's why God is punishing you. Well, actually, the book of Job, he did go through a lot. His friends did abandon him, but he always kept that faith forever and ever, and that's what Ernest Holmes is pointing out here. So the scripture from the book of Job says, "The Spirit of God hath made me, and the breath of the Almighty hath given me life." And Ernest goes on to say, the Bible tells us to let the mind be in us that was in Jesus. And that's what we refer to when we talk about the Christ consciousness. It's that mind in Jesus is in the divine mind. It is in us. There's no separation. We just got to be open to it. He goes on, he says, which of course is the mind of God and the invisible guest in every person. I know that this invisible guest within me, the angel of God's presence, is counseling me wisely, leading me unerringly, directing my thoughts and actions in harmony, in peace, in poise, in love, and in cooperation. And because God cannot fail, and because the divine presence within me is God as my real self, your real self is your divine self, I know that there is power flowing through my word of faith, which makes straight the way before me. So Job's external situation was traumatic. What Ernest Holmes is saying is when that happens, you point inside, you turn to that power, that beautiful place inside that you are. And let me share one more from this book before we close. And this is a little bit more upbeat. It's from Corinthians. And it's about all the abundance that God and the divine allows for us each and every day. And it goes like this, and this is the quote from Corinthians. And God is able to make all grace abound toward you, that ye, always having all sufficiency in all things, may abound to every good work. And this is this continuing expectation of good. Of good when things are not in the state of Job, but normal state or even pretty good state. This continuing expectation of good. And Ernest Holmes just reaffirms that and tells us to trust nothing but that continuing expectation of good. He says, I am living in the continual expectancy that every good thing in my experience shall be multiplied. There is neither doubt nor uncertainty in my mind. Every denial is transformed into an affirmation. Every denial is transformed into an affirmation. Every negation into an acceptance, not a few of them, but every negation into an acceptance. Every no into a yes. I know that the Spirit of God has made me, and the breath of the Almighty has given me life. So he's taken any doubt out there. Just exactly what we were talking about earlier is you have to focus on your consciousness, both the direction and thoughts and the emotion behind it. And in this verbiage, Ernest Holmes is very, very strong about there is no room for doubt or limiting beliefs. So that's a power that we can rely on. And so maybe take this home. I encourage you, if you like quick daily readings, especially a lot of Bible stuff, get a copy of the Ernest Holmes 365. It's a great book. And let's just bring this new affirmation into your life. So tomorrow when you get up, start your day by saying, let there be, and let the divine inside of you fill in everything else. And I guarantee you, your life will be different tomorrow. Thank you. God bless you. I love you very much.